Hey y'all, welcome back. Last week I did a fun experiment where I read my first Haruki Murakami book for the first time, and I really enjoyed the vlogging experience, so I thought I could turn it into kind of a series where I read a really famous author's backlist for the first time. I think this is a good chance to delve into authors that have always been on my radar but have just never made it onto my TBR. And so for this week, I'm going to be reading, drumroll, to Brandon Sanderson for the first time. So here I have The Final Empire, which is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. I think everyone who is even slightly interested in fantasy has heard of this at some point. This is also going to be my first real adult fantasy book, so I'm really excited to get into it. I've only really read YA fantasy before this book, so I'm really excited to see how it differs and how I really feel about fantasy, because I don't think that YA fantasy is like a true indicator for the entire genre. I'll be taking y'all along with me as I vlog my experience reading this book. Hey guys, it's about 7 o'clock in the evening and I am 10% of the way into The Final Empire. Do y'all ever just read a book and then just immediately know that you're gonna love it and you're just falling into the world and it's just amazing? It's been a hot second since I've really found myself enjoying a book like from the start, and there's just something about the style and the world and the characters that are just so intriguing. Ugh, love it. So far we're introduced to this world covered in ash and ruled by this dude called Lord Ruler. There's a lot of different social hierarchies. There's nobility, there's inquisitors, obligators, the Lord Ruler himself, basically all these different tiers. These different class structures are usually determined by your ancestry and not necessarily by your current wealth. At the bottom of the ladder is the Ska, and they usually work as workers, they're beggars, they work as basically slaves for these lords. And of course there are also bands of more organized thieves or kind of scam groups that try to scam the nobility and to get money in their own way. And now we're introduced to the concept of mistlings, mistborns, basically people who have certain powers of allomancy, which have to do with calling powers from different metals. The system, when I've heard other people explain it, I thought would be really difficult to get into and understand. But now that I'm reading through it and I'm just getting into the world, it seems like Brandon Sanderson actually introduces things in a really cohesive way. I'm not at all confused. I feel like I'm settling in real well. It's going smoothly. I'm really liking this book so far. If any of y'all have already read this book, what were your first impressions of it? Let me know, because I feel like with this book, it's like an all or nothing situation where you're either like, yes, I'm like 100% already in, I'm committed, I'm gonna, I love this world already, or you're kind of like, it's probably not ever gonna be for me. So let me know what your impressions were. So it's been a while. Specifically, it's been about a week since I've filmed, but in that time I have finished reading Mistborn. I wrote down a lot of my notes by the different parts of the book, so I'm gonna go through it that way. At one point I got this strange, insta-lovey type of vibe from Vin and Elend, but I think now that I've read the book, I can see the direction it's going in, so it's not insta-lovey, and I wasn't expecting that for an adult fantasy novel, which is why I got kind of sidetracked the first time. My main thing with part 2 is I kind of wish we had seen more of the recruiting process behind this big heist that they're trying to pull off. So going into more in depth with Ham, Breeze, and Marcia's part. But I also get the feeling that that might have given away too much of the plan. That's why we focus mainly on Vin and Kelsier's part. So part 3 was kind of the first real low point. Like we hit a real low in part 3 on multiple fronts. And this is the part where you see kind of the deeper characterizations of each person, especially Vin. You get the sense of finally how young she is and how inexperienced she is. Oh, yeah, part 4, I was really not excited to read part 4. There were not only low points, there was like underground, like hell level points. It was not a good time. Yeah, I would say that this book definitely goes from being like, yay, everything's great, to oh no, and it just kind of keeps getting worse until a certain point. My overall thoughts about the ending is that it's could be looked at as kind of convenient. I kind of got sidetracked. I feel like as readers, it kind of comes out of nowhere, the ending does. It's not necessarily a bad thing because it makes sense within the storyline, and it's also got kind of hinted at throughout the story, so I think it made it easier to accept, but not any less surprising. And I have to say, my overall experience of reading Mistborn was absolutely fantastic. I really loved the book. I thought it was one of the first real fantasies that I gotten into in a long time, and like the first real book in general that I immediately knew I would love and wanted to keep reading forever and ever in one sitting. So yeah, that was my experience reading Mistborn for the first time. I'm really excited to continue into the rest of the series and also tackle more adult fantasy or high fantasy in the future. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please hit like, and if you want to see more, click subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.